come back to the tweet. Do you think the Ninth Circuit's got it in for the White House?
I don't know that they have it in for the White House. I think they have it in. They have a horrible record of interpreting the law, and that's just a fact. U.S. Code makes it very clear that this president has the full authority to do what's necessary to protect this country and to present grant money in a way that he sees fit. The idea that any judge or any jurisdiction would not be wanting to help make sure that we can protect our citizens runs counter to, frankly, what we should all be looking for as citizens and what our law should be supporting to do.
The battle over sanctuary cities continues. A federal judge in San Francisco blocking President Trump's executive order to cut off sanctuary city funding. This U.S. district judge, his name is William Orrick, he said, quote, federal funding that bears no meaningful relationship to immigration enforcement cannot be threatened merely because a jurisdiction chooses an immigration enforcement strategy that the president disapproves of. Let's bring in Jordan Sekulow. He's the executive director of the American Center for Law and Justice. Good to see you, Jordan. This is the same court that blocked the president's original travel halt. And President Trump calling this latest ruling ridiculous. He's going to take it to the Supreme Court. Is that where it's headed?
I think so, because the next step is the Ninth Circuit. The Ninth Circuit is no good for, they've become no good for conservative judicial analysts or even conservative ideas, and they play around with the law. For instance, remember when Arizona tried to toughen their immigration laws, and the Obama administration said, no, this is only the federal government's power, and the courts ended up agreeing with them all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. That was pretty settled. But the left, when it comes to now the federal government saying enforce the laws, now it's a states' rights issue. They suddenly embrace the 10th Amendment, which this judge did. And it's because these judges are so partisan, specifically Judge Orrick. I mean, he gave 200 grand, bundled 200 grand for President Obama's election campaign in 2008, gave another $30,000 personally. He goes back to doing this, by the way, for lots of Democratic presidential candidates, including 100 grand for John Kerry in 2004. He even served in the immigration division of the Department of Justice under President Obama that handled in the civil division that handled immigration matters. So, of course, he has a view very different than President Trump's, but he is not yet at the point in his judicial career where he's able to put that robe on and see a difference between being an advocate and a judge.
So what do you think about this judge's credibility?
I think this was one where it was close to recusal, just because of what I went through, Liz, not just because of the politics, but because he was at the Department of Justice as an attorney appointed by President Obama before he got the court, the judge of the court, doing the cases against things like this. So there's that recusal question, but the truth is, Liz, it's going to move on.
Jordan, Democrats upset about criticizing a federal judge, but didn't Democrats criticize Supreme Court Justice Gorsuch before he was even confirmed? So what's the difference? Yeah.
Again, double standard. It's one thing, I think, to go after by name. And I think sometimes you could say, okay, maybe we don't want to go by name, but by ideology, and to say a judge's ruling is wrong and that you disagree with it. I mean, for goodness sakes, President Obama got up at the State of the Union and did that with the Supreme Court sitting there right in front of him. So, again, this double standard. They invoke states' rights when they don't like something, and states' rights don't exist when they like something the federal government does. It's kind of funny to see when you get the liberal judges start arguing for the states and local municipalities' rights under the Constitution, under laws. This executive order is based off of a existing U.S. code that gives the authority to the president to do this. On page 4 of the opinion, the judge says it, and they make it about all this money. It's money that comes from Homeland Security and Department of Justice that gets allocated to these cities. There's obviously a tie to that money and dealing with potentially criminal illegal aliens.